Hey, it's Jase, and this is your podcast, Quick Hit. It's tips and advice for you to help grow your coaching business, lead your people to success, and be the mentor you need to be. So today I want to share with you a story about when I used to be a flight attendant, or really starting right before I became a flight attendant. And last week, 30 years ago, I became a flight attendant. And I was a temp. And in the airlines, if you want to work anywhere, you have to have security clearance. So the airline would have an in-house temp agency. And I remember my boss says, Jase, we were worst at customer service. We were absolute worst. And she says, Jase, we're doing these seminars. We're going to fly in everybody from the entire country, and we're going to put the whole company through these seminars. And I was like, most people are when they hear about seminars, whatever. I was like, ugh, that sounds horrible. I don't want to go sit through some class. I wasn't going to do it. And she goes, thank God for her. She goes, I think this is going to be really great. She's like, if it was me, I'd do it. And then she goes, you're going to do it. So I didn't have a choice. So I wound up being like the admin person. And so they flew the entire company in, and I would check people in. And if the speaker needed something, I would go get it. And, I was just like the gopher, right? And I remember vividly on the first time I saw her speak, she said, who got up this morning and said, good morning, God? And the whole crowd's like, ah. And then she goes, who got up this morning and said, good God morning? And everybody laughed. And I learned, holy crap, you can use the same jokes over and over with an audience and they'll eat it up. I was like, this is cool. And I saw her do this every time she did the presentation. So I learned early on, if you want to be a speaker, you don't have to be funny each time in a different way. You just have to have a good line and repeat it for a new crowd. So I'm working these events, and it was called Pulling People First, and they had phenomenal training in it. Like, we learned how to deal with upset people. We learned how to deal with personality types. We learned how to really own what was going on. And our airline went from worst to first in customer service, and I really believe that this was a big part of it. So one day, they at one of these events, they're teaching us personality types, and I had a side job as a waiter. And so I took the personality assessment in, and I was sharing with my coworkers what I'd learned. And the manager took it, and we had an owner of the company who was insane. Like, this guy was so hard to work with. But the manager took it, and the next day she comes in and she goes, I'm going to quit. And I was like, what? Why? And she goes, when I took that assessment and you taught me about the different personality types, I realized this isn't the place for me, and I got to go somewhere better for me. Now, while I felt that she was quitting in a way, I didn't want to lead someone to quit. It was the first time someone had ever listened to my advice, and they were moving to a better place for them. I guess I should give up the guilt around quitting. She was moving to a better place for her. And I made a difference in her life. And that was the first time I had made a difference in somebody's life. And it touched my heart. And I think it's part of what me got on this path of personal growth. And so I sat through the seminars over and over and over and over and over. By the way, I think that's where I started my marketing thing too. I approached restaurants around town and I said, hey, we got 200-300 people coming. Do you want to give them some coupons? And they did, and I'd give them out. I didn't charge for it though. I just did it to be nice for the people that were coming in town, to give them a deal. So fast forward, I become a flight attendant, and by the time someone gets in that metal tube, they've had to deal with reservations. They've had to catch a cab or a shuttle. There's no Uber back then to the airport. They had to check in and check their bags. They had to deal with a gate agent. And if something went wrong, typically it would just poop rolls downhill until they get into that airplane, and you're with them for 1 to 6 hours, and you can't just boot them off the airplane once you're in the air. So we really had to know how to deal with people that were upset, soothe the situation, and make a win out of it. And the training I got watching those events over and over and over and over allowed me to do that on the airplane. And what I see now as a coach is it maps over. When you're going to coach people to truly change their lives, there's going to be moments they're heated. There's going to be moments they're stressed. There's going to be moments that like the emotions are up. Maybe you dropped the ball on something. My friend was just doing an event. Someone in the audience was giving him a rash of crap. Or maybe they broke their integrity. Typically what happens when your clients break their integrity, especially around payments, they'll find every justification in the world to justify their right in not paying you by making you wrong. Because if you're a bad guy, in their mind, they're like, oh, I gotta pay so-and-so. He's a bad guy. The longest emails you will ever get as a coach are from people who don't want to pay their bill. So you got to deal with that. And then when you're doing sales and objection handling, it's the same thing. And so some quick hits, some quick tips out of that. When you're handling upset people, when you're handling objections, all of that, don't go with what they say. Get to the emotion behind it. So meet them where they are. Really get where they are. Like you get into it with them. Like if they're mad, get a little like, yeah, I feel how you're not throwing it back at them. You're standing shoulder to shoulder, commiserating with them. Man, I totally really get it. What's happening? Like explain it to me and let them get it out. And quite often it's like a big balloon that's been filled up and the balloon separates you and them. And when you let them all the air out, when you let them get it out, that balloon goes away and then you can connect. And so when you're dealing with anything, let them get out the emotions first. Well, what's required behind that? You've got to join them in their neurosis, we call it. You've got to really hear them out, and this is critical. No matter what they say, you cannot take it personally. You cannot give a yeah but or rebuttal or anything. You just got to hear them and keep asking, what's next? What's next? And when you first start doing this, it can be really hard. The more you practice it, the more you get, wow, got it. The more you just stay like this mountain and you're letting this tropical storm just rain over this mountain with all its fury, the mountain just stays there. And by the time the tropical storm's released all its energy, afterwards, it's like you see the movies, it's beautiful and it's just great skies and everything's awesome. And so be that mountain, let them get it all out. And then quite often what happens, simply because you listened, simply because you cared, simply because you were there for them, they're fine. And that means the problem's gone. And they might see something like, I'm just having a bad day, I'm so sorry. Or if you're dealing with objections and you just hear it all out, they might go, this really isn't a thing. I could do this. Or if you screwed up, then when they get the energy out, they go, okay, so what do you think? And then you have conversation to mix it. And if they screwed up and you give them the space to get it out, then they'll be like, yeah, I'm sorry. So just stay solid. By the way, this works with your spouse. This works with kids. This works all over the place. So when you're doing this, a couple other hits on it, if you know the 4 personality types, and we studied this a lot in those first seminars, you have the controllers. They want results fast. They're powerful. They want to get it done. Passionates want to look good. They want to have fun. Accommodators want relationship, and planners want details and do it right. Listen to what they're saying. If they're like, man, I look bad, da-da-da-da. Well, that's probably passionate. And you want to, after you get the energy out a little bit, reassure them, somehow reassure them they don't look bad, and that whatever you're going to do next is going to make them look good. Accommodator, really push into the relationship. Planners, talk about, we have a procedure to handle this, and it's the tried and true. But don't ever say that to the controller. Controllers can be like, what procedure? I'm too important. Yeah. Controllers, you could give them options. Now, this is critical. With a controller, if they see they can get an advantage, they'll cut your knees off, especially in negotiation. So with a controller, you don't just say, what should we do? You can ask a planner that. They'll give you a fair answer. With a controller, give them 2 options. You know what? I've got option 1. I've got option 2. What option would you like? Boom, let them choose. Let them be in control, and they'll choose it. So all of that goes into speaking, by the way. When you're speaking, you want to speak to what they want. Speak to results. Speak to details and plans that work. Speak to having fun and looking great. Speak to how much the relationships will get better. Use all of this in your presentation too, not just in your objection handling. So hope this has been helpful, man. I learned all of this at first event, and I loved my time as a flight attendant. Then a couple last thoughts. Talking about training. we would train for emergencies. And on a future video, I'll share the story about how we had an in-flight emergency and my training kicked in and we handled it so well that we wound up filming a video that the airline showed for years and years about how to handle emergencies. So I'll share that story with you on another quick hit. I'll also share a story with you about the importance of the right crew when you're doing events. And this is what I learned on that emergency, and also when I was a flight attendant living my life. The right crew makes all the difference. All right, this is Jase. I'm gonna tell one story. It's not off color, but I want to leave you guys with something funny. One of my good friends when I was a flight attendant was this blonde, and she was this, not the stereotypical buxom blonde. She was really strong yet feminine, and she was built. She was curvy, and she had platinum blonde hair. And this is long before I knew about hypnosis or anything. And she was smart. This girl was smart. Someone might have taken, because she had a tan all the time and the blonde hair and build, that she was a bimbo. She was not, right? And so she's working first class on this flight one day, and some passenger comes, he's in the first class galley yelling at her. And finally he goes, "You're nothing but a sky mattress," which totally inappropriate, right? But what she did though was beautiful and genius. She looks at him and she goes, "Do you like my hair?" And the guy just fries out and like leaves. And here's what I realized she did years later. It's called a pattern interrupt. She did something that interrupted his pattern of thought and emotion, and she so radically interrupted it that it was done. And what was beautiful about what she did is she set up a dynamic where either she's such a bimbo, "Do you like my hair?" that what's the point of talking to her? Or she's so genius that she's not even going to buy into that guy's anger, and she's going to bring up something like that to diffuse the situation. I remember hearing this years ago. I was like, gee, my mind was blown. But then when I started to learn about hypnosis and how hypnosis works and pattern interrupts work, I realized how genius she was. She was doing a pattern interrupt long before I'd ever learned about sales and hypnosis. So hope this has been helpful. I love you guys. We'll see you on the next To the Promised Land podcast. Bye. Thanks for joining me today on To the Promised Land podcast. If you're ready to grow your impact, master your message, and become the kind of speaker people can't ignore, head on over to our website, tothepromisedlandpodcast.com. That's where the real transformation begins. The links are all in the description.